The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Thursday, May 25th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to begin with the announcement from Ron DeSantis that he is at least finally admitting that he's running for president. He took to Twitter with Elon Musk yesterday to about 100,000 people in a Twitter space that had multiple technical difficulties. It was somewhat of a mess. So the Twitter Spaces launch did not go well. However, he put out this video. Here is a clip of Ron DeSantis announcing that he is president. I want to play it so that we can dissect it, so that we can understand exactly the play that we're up against coming up into the 2024 election. Take a listen in.
Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
All right. So there you go. Ron DeSantis has finally admitted that he's running for president, even though he ran around the country and quite frankly around the world as though he was already a nominee for president. But I digress. The music was an interesting choice. I think he felt like it was going to sound patriotic or enthusiastic and kind of have a pomp and circumstance to it, but it really just sounded like a horror movie flick. But that's not important either. What's really important is that we're dealing with a time period where misinformation can be so fundamental, right? The baseline that we live in this country right now is one of misinformation. Ron DeSantis, one of the ways he skyrocketed into the national discourse was his opposition to students wearing masks during the pandemic. And quite frankly, we're still in the pandemic. His opposition to the vaccine, his opposition to shutting down, his opposition to, quite frankly, everything that would have saved lives, because he was such a staunch opponent to doing the reasonable and rational thing during the pandemic. And again, we are still in the pandemic, but I know that's not popular to say because, well, it is the popular thing now to attack people who are still wearing masks. But this is how Ron DeSantis accelerated to the top of the conversation, that and his relentless attack on blackness in the form of saying woke. This was him. This is Ron DeSantis on Fox News last night.
Well, first of all, the woke mind virus is basically a form of cultural Marxism. At the end of the day, it's an attack on the truth. And because it's a war on truth, I think we have no choice but to wage a war on woke. So how does that work for a president? Some of it may be the bully pulpit, being willing to tell the truth and not being deluded by ideology, which we see in many aspects of our society.
And again, that really tantamounts to nothing coming out of his mouth except a couple of keywords that trigger racist Fox News viewers who are looking for a way to say the N-word, but they can't say it anymore. And so they got this new word from Ron DeSantis or from whoever decided to whitewash it and to colonize it, because woke originally came from African-American vernacular, but there's nothing black in this country that colonizers won't take a chance to co-opt. And so they took it and changed it to become essentially anything they hate, anything that represents diversity, anything that represents inclusion, anything that represents progress, anything that represents blackness, they label as woke. And this is, again, how Ron DeSantis skyrocketed to the front of the conversation. And it's because we are living in a post-truth America. Ron DeSantis is, in fact, worse than Donald Trump, because at least Donald Trump doesn't pretend to be a paragon of truth. Ron DeSantis has come in after the work that Donald Trump did across this nation, right? Fundamentally undermining our ability to engage in conversations rooted in truth, fact, objectifiable, verifiable, and yes, falsifiable information. We are well past that point. And so now it's the perfect setting for someone like Ron DeSantis, who has the charisma of a Borg, to be able to stand in front of the nation and declare that he is the paragon of truth, because he now lives in this alternate reality. America, quite frankly, lives in this alternate reality where the pandemic is over. In fact, where the pandemic never really happened for some of these people. They still think it's a plandemic. Ron DeSantis supporters still think it was a plandemic. And so Ron DeSantis gets the benefit of living in a post-truth reality. That's where we are. And Ron DeSantis has now found the perfect conditions that are necessary to allow a sociopath like him to enter into power. And he is also benefiting from a legislature in the state of Florida that is predominantly Republican, that passed a bill that Ron DeSantis signed into law, I believe last week or at the end of the session in Florida, signed into law that allowed him to continue serving as the governor of Florida while he runs for president. Prior to him signing this bill into law, he would have had to step down as the governor of Florida and allow the lieutenant governor to fulfill the duties so that he could run for president. But that's not good enough for Ron DeSantis. He is the type of spoiled man-child who will change the rules to his benefit when the rules are not in his favor. And so he literally signed into law his ability to remain governor and neglect Florida for the next 2 years, mind you. But this is the type of environment that's necessary for someone like Ron DeSantis to rise to the top. And it's not even just about Ron DeSantis, to be sure, right? We will cover him. There's plenty of stuff to discuss and to re-expose, because America knows a few things about Ron DeSantis, like his time as the JAG officer at Guantanamo Bay, which he oversaw the torture of detainees. We actually have audio of one of the detainees, and it's from an episode of the Real News Network. Now, I'll drop the link there so that you can go read and listen to that podcast yourself. But there are testimonies from detainees who remember Ron DeSantis by name and by face because of the type of joy he got out of overseeing the torture that they endured. So there's plenty to discuss about Ron DeSantis, but the most disturbing aspect of this, honestly, of this situation, it's the times in which we live. It's the ability we thought conservative media was a problem back in 2008, 2012, 2016. But what happened between 2008 and 2022 and 2023, where we are right now, is the solidifying of the echo chambers of the conservative echo chamber and its ability to take false narratives from the ground up. It could be something as simple as the New York City bike situation, where the nurse was attempting to get a bike from two young black men and it went viral. And we saw how they took that narrative, conservative media took that narrative and decided on their own spin in conjunction with her attorney. And that became a national narrative that had a hermetically sealed bubble around it. And the narrative that the conservative media did with that particular case, we'll discuss it in one of the subsequent segments coming up. But what they were able to do was create a national conversation that took place on national media, on Fox News, on News Nation, on OANN, on all of these networks, along with all of their podcasts and YouTube echo chamber. And they created a narrative that had a national cable news coverage, that had social media coverage, that had podcast and YouTube coverage, and had Twitter, even down to Twitter, their ability to create a narrative that hardly anyone from the left, anyone from the truth can get a word in edgewise, because that's the point, to create this entire vacuum of actual truth, where the only thing that foments to the top is whatever narrative the conservative agenda chooses. And it is in that environment that someone like Ron DeSantis, who has zero charisma, right? Let's just talk about his lack of normal human ability to interact with people, right? They're able to take that person who has a malicious agenda clearly, and they're able to take him to the top of this country. Well, because he matches the energy of the moment of the conservative movement, which is steeped in disinformation, misinformation, bigotry, and a hermetically sealed media bubble that can make something like the woke mind virus seem like it's an actual thing. God help us. I want to go to the Target quote unquote boycott that is being instituted by conservatives all over the country under the leadership of Matt Walsh, who is the Martin Luther King of the conservative movement right now. He has made it his life's mission to attack the LGBTQ community wherever they are in every aspect. They are not going to be allowed to have any peace underneath the leadership of someone like Matt Walsh, who is building his entire platform on the Daily Wire out of pure hatred and bigotry for the LGBTQIA community, specifically targeting the trans community. Now, his acolytes, his comrades, they're going much further than just even Matt Walsh's hatred. They're going down to making their intention is for every single gay person to have to go back into the closet. And so I want to discuss this so-called boycott for two different reasons. One, there's a clip of a Target employee and a Target security guard who had to escort out two right-wing extremists who were going through Target, not only taking down signs and destroying signs, but also harassing shoppers, asking them if they support the satanic LGBTQ agenda. So we'll play that clip. But also, this falls into the category of what is able to be accomplished when you have this echo chamber from the right that has no real substantial challenge from the left. Not in terms of media, because many of our media outlets are starting to flounder or go the way of alternate facts. I'll just leave it there. I'm not going to wage a war on the left in this segment. But when we don't have a countervailing force of significance that can actually match their propaganda with truth, then we see they are able to move on to so-called boycotts. They're able to start organizing around the lies, and they're able to start organizing around the hatred and the bigotry at a scale that gives them the appearance that they have the righteous thing. They're on the righteous side. I mean, right now, the conservative movement is running around the country as if they have goodness and truth and justice in their wings. And they are really at a high point. I would say this is a real high watermark for the conservative movement. The good news about this high watermark is that the tide is going to go out eventually. The waters will recede eventually. Their successes will eventually turn into failures, if for no other reason than their ego and their inability to actually work together cohesively over a long period of time. But those things remain to be seen. What's happening right now is a full onslaught from the conservative movement to try to force the LGBTQ community back into the closet. It's not, we're well past talking about at what age a child should be allowed to make a decision for themselves and with their parents and with their doctors about transitioning. We're well past that. We are well past the debate of how trans athletes should or should not compete, in which category they should. We're well past that debate. And this is why so many trans activists were trying to warn people to say it's not even about trans athletes. It's not even about trans children. These people are religious zealots who want to eradicate the LGBTQ community from the public. They have said so. These are their words. They have sermons being preached now every single Sunday where they're advocating for the murder of gay people. They intend to try these people and line them up on the wall and shoot them in the back of the head. And because that language is so bombastic, let me actually play you the clip so you don't think I'm just making this up.
Does God say is the answer, is the solution for the homosexual in 2022, here in the New Testament, here in the book of Romans, that they are worthy of death? These people should be put to death. Every single homosexual in our country should be charged with the crime, the abomination of homosexuality that they have. They should be convicted in a lawful trial. They should be sentenced with death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. That's what God teaches.
No, that's not what God teaches, but that's another conversation. That was Dylan Alls from Steadfast Baptist Church. Here's Pastor Mark Burns saying as much.
The LGBT, transgender, grooming our children's minds is a national security threat because it is ultimately designed to destabilize the republic. I want to start holding people accountable for treason to the Constitution. Start having some public hearings and start executing people who are found guilty for their treasonous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America.
Now, that was Pastor Mark Burns, who was embarrassed spectacularly by CNN because of his falsified resume where he pretended to have graduated from a distinguished college and pretended to have pledged the fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated. He did neither of those things. Here's Pastor Tanner Furr, Furrh, in lockstep with these others.
You know, if you Google my name, guess what? You're not going to get a whole lot of positive feedback from that search. It's going to be like, this hate preacher, he hates all the AIDS dispensers, he wants them to die. Amen, I do want them to die. I pray to God that he would just kill them all suddenly in a painful way every single night. You know, that would be their outcome. That God would just wipe them off the face of this planet.
Now, I apologize to anyone that was triggering for. It certainly should be triggering for all of us, whether you are gay or not, whether you're LGBTQ or not. But I wanted to play that because that's the context that you should understand what's going on at the Target stores. You have everyone playing their respective roles. You have preachers who are giving the excuses and the so-called moral or spiritual or religious justification for violence against the LGBTQIA community. I, of course, as a preacher myself, take 100% issue with that. But that's another conversation for another day. We just know that these are religious extremists and zealots who are willing to act out violence. They're willing to justify it while they're foot soldiers. The ones who are going into Target now, they were in the streets at first. Now they're going into establishments, taking their harassment campaign, destroying property and harassing people. This is the clip from one of the so-called Target boycotts. And I'm playing this because of how spectacularly the team at Target handled these fascists. Listen in.
Hey, do you guys support the satanic pride propaganda?
Yeah, both.
You support it?
Satan and pride.
You support Satan?
Mm-hmm.
What's God going to think of that?
I don't believe in God.
Wow, he says. Now, there's a lot more to play, but I have to stop there because this is, as a Christian, as a preacher, I support this, and I hope that you would use this technique as well. Anytime someone is, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter. Anytime someone puts this false dichotomy in front of you that's rooted in hatred and bigotry, just dismiss their God. Dismiss them altogether because I dismiss their God. If their God is real and I'm wrong, send me to hell too. I'm right there with you guys. Let's all just go to hell and have a big party together because I refuse to be associated with that type of evil disguised as religion. Let's keep listening.
So you
Did you need help with something?
you support the propaganda that's targeting the kids?
There's nothing targeting kids.
It's all over kids' TV shows. It's all over. They're targeting
Kids
the kids.
can choose to wear whatever they want.
Do you support the sexualization of kids through pride propaganda by
Sir,
corporate?
is there something that we can help you with?
I'm just asking people questions. What about you, sir? Do you support
I'm not
this?
answering any questions, but if you're here to cause any disturbance in the store,
I'm just asking questions. Do you work?
Yeah,
Do you work
but
for the
you're
Target?
disrupting-
Do you work
yes,
for Target?
I do, actually.
Where's your name tag?
I am the undercover loss prevention.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm just asking questions. So do you support this satanic propaganda?
I'm not
like she
answering
does?
your questions. What you need to do is you either need to leave the store
God will judge you guys.
Okay.
See, there's nothing more smug. I can tell you this. I don't have to tell you this because if you've ever dealt with religiously pious people, you understand that there's nothing more smug than a person who believes that what they're doing, the bigotry that they're enacting, is rooted and approved by God. You know, it's totally different than those of us who take our actions to go help people, to help the homeless, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, and to actually do what Jesus said. But that's a whole different conversation. Maybe we'll talk about that in the patrons episode. But there's nothing more smug than a person who uses God as a justification for their hatred, their bigotry, and their violence. And that's where we are. It is a multi-tiered attack. It is happening through social media. It's happening through mainstream media. It is being justified in these churches who are around the country spreading these hate-filled messages, and it is being enacted upon by their foot soldiers, who are going into these establishments, causing havoc, destroying property, and harassing people, and that is just them being friendly. Let's be sure this is them being friendly, because at their worst, they run over people like they did in Charlottesville, killing Heather Heyer. I mean, they actually kill people with this violence. That's who they really are. That is what they are aspiring to. That is what they're working themselves into a frenzy enough to do. You know, you really got to work yourself up to kill somebody until you get used to it, until you're, just a barbarian. But these people are trying to hype their community at large into committing acts of violence. And what we're seeing happening in these stores across the country, it's just the beginning. And we absolutely have to fight back like hell.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Now, I haven't done, I was out last week, so I didn't do much of any coverage of the New York City nurse who went super viral in the video trying to take a bike from two young black men, or it was about three of them in New York City. They were trying to get one of the rental bikes to ride around the city in. And she was trying to take the bike that it appeared belonged to them. And that was a context and the subtext that it went viral on, that this racist Karen tried to take bikes away from 2 or 3 young black men. What happened after that was an execution of right-wing propaganda, the likes that I really haven't seen be so effective from the bottom up. You know, Republicans usually execute this type of agenda with precision from the top down. Anytime there's a political agenda and they need to protect someone, they know how to float false stories in the newspapers and get that story cited by social media. And then once it's cited by social media, the mainstream media picks it up and they take that lie from the bottom, right, all the way to the top. And it becomes one cohesive story that you have to spend hours just to get a modicum of truth out of. That is the nature of the conservative propaganda machine, and that is the point. It is on purpose. Now, what does that have to do with the nurse from New York City? Well, immediately after the original video went viral, and if you've seen the video, what stood out about the video is not whether or not we could, as an audience, determine who was the rightful person to take the bike. None of us watching the video could make that determination because none of us had the receipts. All we had was their word against hers. Her word didn't mean much of anything to the viewers of the video because she instantly made herself start crying and stop crying in a matter of about 30 seconds or less. She turned on her tears and cut them off when she was approached by a white guy who was trying to ask what was going on. She turned on those white Karen tears. Now that you could see, you could ascertain that yourself without having to see any of the receipts. Now, I hope you're up to speed on the story because we're going to go in a little bit deeper because after this video went viral, the conservative part of the internet raised her over $100,000. She subsequently secured a PR firm and an attorney. That PR firm and attorney put a story in the New York Post saying that she had receipts proving that it belonged to her. The only problem with the receipts, folks, was that the timestamp was redacted. They showed a receipt that she actually had purchased a rental bike. So, yeah, there was a bike out there for her to rent. But the timestamp and some critical information was redacted. That did not stop the New York Post from running the headline saying that the quote-unquote Karen has receipts. And now we have sat through the last week and a half of nonstop attacks on the young men in the videos, but also the entire apparatus of videos that go viral, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Conservatives use that headline from the New York Post, which is a right-wing media, rag. The New York Post is a right-wing media rag. But that didn't stop the echo chamber from kicking into high gear. And now we have, from the top down, from national news media all the way down to TikTok, you have conservative activists who are using this as quote-unquote evidence of the problem with the left and the reverse racism that white women suffer in this country. There was one tweet that actually said that this is an attack on white women. Okay, I want to play you a clip of a video from TikTok. This is a young man from New York who pieced it together in a way that actually I don't need to repeat it. I want you to hear from him because, well, the sisters of the sister of the young men who were in the video, they provided a receipt as well without a redacted timestamp. And the timestamp that was provided by the sister. See, this is extreme. One of the reasons I didn't cover this was because when you get into these type of details, it is completely absurd and impossible for us to litigate these types of issues from a 30,000-foot level. But that doesn't stop America from trying. What I saw in that video that stood out to me was the clear evidence that this white woman cut on her tears and cut them off in a matter of split seconds. And that wasn't that a TikTok trend last year? Where white women were, and I'm saying white women specifically because black men have been killed as a result of white women's tears. So when we saw that white nurse cut on her tears and then cut them off over a rental bike, that it remains to be seen who, let's let a court decide that, right? But it was the tears that have gotten black people killed in the past that she tried to cut on. And now it is the execution of the right-wing echo chamber with flawless precision that changed the entire national narrative. And now in order for us to get the truth, you gotta dig for about 3, 4, 5 hours to get the truth. That is the nature and the purpose of the conservative media infrastructure. Well, here is another take that I believe is true. You could take it for what it's worth. Take a listen into this cat.
You guys really donated $100,000 for a Karen to go hire a PR firm to make a black kid look bad.
Please help me! Please help me! Help! Please help! Help me! Please help me! Please help me!
Yeah, this is the trash Karen that you guys gave money to, so she can go hire a PR firm and some lawyers to go make the black kid look bad and sue everybody that calls her a Karen because she's implying that the black kid stole the bike from her.
Her lawyer provided us these receipts showing she had rented the bike in question. In fact, the bike number on the receipt actually matches the bike she is seen being pushed off of in the video. Do you trust him to fairly investigate this, and if charges are warranted, bring them?
Speaking of Alvin Bragg.
As jackasses on News Nation talking about the narrative, oh, maybe we should press charges on the black kids for shoving her off the bike, and then they got the bombshell of a receipt with a redacted timestamp. Okay, so this is what actually happened. The black kid, who probably has an annual membership, is allowed to take any bike he wants for up to 45 minutes before he has to redock. How do I fucking know? I'm fucking from New York, and you can Google that shit. If he didn't redock the bike, then he'd get charged for every minute it's still out. So he docks it, hoping to take it back out again, all of which is on his account. And what does the Karen do? It's like, oh, I want your bike. And what makes his bike special? There are two types of city bikes in New York City. One's electric and one's not. So like, one you have to pedal harder than the other. She saw the kid probably dock the bike and was like, hey, can I have that? And he's like, nah, I'm not done with it. And she tried to scan her phone anyways when he docked it. And how do I know my version of the story is fucking true? Because the kid's sister literally has the timestamps for when he took the fucking bike out. The kid literally has two fucking receipts, one from 6:33 to 7:15, and the next one from 7:25 to 7:33. And guess where that video fucking took place? She literally starts crying for fucking help 1 minute before he got a chance to take it back out again. But nah, leave it up to the internet to go pay a fucking Karen 120 grand so she can go write some op-eds pretending like they're fucking news pieces about how she's the victim here. Oh, and shout out to the fucking PR firm, aka Dustin Siggins of Proven Media Solutions. Go take everybody's donated money to spin that shit to make the black kid look bad. Yeah, good job, guys.
Well, again, that's the point. The point is to neutralize our ability to organize through social media and to amplify their ability to organize their boycotts against Target on social media. The purpose is to use their media infrastructure to control the national discourse, no matter how untrue their narratives are. Patrons, stay tuned. Everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow.